So like the film of the same right now for that song asking like the girl and what should I see in something to like the upcoming games like Squid because like definitely even though and definitely only it will be just it will just be temporarily currently unrevealed but like I'm the scenario that might have happened of that during that interaction might have been definitely that girl revealing to like Sangwoo about like what she had seen about like that whole green liquid and then the Spring Sangwoo might have been able to like figure out and connect the presence of that green liquid to that some one of like the games that Sangwoo might have played during childhood and so like I'm about to bring right now Sangwoo and Sangwoo might have shared that information with that girl as well. Exactly as for like what possibly like the upcoming games the upcoming game would be definitely my personal and I'm about to bring Sangwoo definitely be being uh, like exactly correct about Sangwoo's hunch as well, like what the games will be. But like I'm looking even though I'm looking Sangwoo only being right about the game, but like as for like how the that very exact game would be carried out in like as like a Squid Game version. I'm looking that to be a lot of to be that kind of like unexpected as to like what Sangwoo and that girl could be at that point. I think it's definitely my personal impression. So and that's my personal impression definitely for like that girl. Even though I'm predicting that girl to have definitely might have definitely revealed about like the green liquid that she saw to like Sangwoo, and considering she would have definitely not revealed about the green liquid to Sangwoo without like striking a deal for definitely never privilege. And the deal that she might have struck with Sangwoo would be to like basically definitely for Sangwoo to like team up the stuff. It's definitely not the emergence. So like for Sangwoo, in exchange of exchanging that information, Sangwoo would have to like help her back as well in like the upcoming game, team up with her and help her back in like the upcoming game. It's definitely my personal impression. I'm preferring that might have been like such a deal I'm preferring right now might have been secretly strike and made between like Sangwoo and that girl, which I'm preferring like the remaining of like Sangyeon's like team in which like Sangwoo had initially been part of like one of the remaining of them would be like totally unaware of like strongly secretly like making this deal and making a team with like the uh with this girl is definitely my topic game. So like I'm preferring Sangyeon like the old man as well as Ali. Like I'm preferring all of them a bit only unaware of like the secret deal between like Sangwoo and that girl is definitely my favorite. And as part of like the deal I'm preferring Sangwoo my and that girl might have decided to like basically to do this like for that girl to like attempt the same strategy again with like and I was preferring maybe like that girl might have definitely not revealed like some was like how exactly she had how or like where exactly she had basically seen like through like the whole air tunnel like that basically that being like the location where like she had basically seen like the upcoming studio. I'm also trying like as part of the deal, I'm also still that girl to people still keep that as like a secret from Sangwoo. And I'm also trying Sangwoo even asking her actually like how or where exactly she was able to see, but like I'm also trying her not revealing about that info to like Sangwoo. And I'm also trying as part of the deal, like I'm also trying their strategy that I'm just bringing right now, Sangwoo and that girl is making would be for like that Sangwoo for that girl to like basically uh, before each game for her to like precisely go up to like that precise bathroom and go through that wind tunnel for her to like eat and basically find out about like just the same strategy and try to like find out about like the game number 3 and 4 and 5 like so that way like spy secretly spy and like take a peek and basically find out like clues as to like what the upcoming Squid Game would be and that basically give that exactly like right now she had seen like the green liquid like the next time she will be planning on like doing the very same thing and whatever it is that she will be seeing at that point through that air ventilation like hole like I'm preferring like she would be like planning on basically right before like Squid Game like she will be planning on like revealing that to like Sangwoo secretly revealing that to like Sangwoo and then Sangwoo possibly being able to like figure out like what like the next Squid Game would be like so like I'm preferring to do this like in like a strategical manner before like every Squid Game for them to like as like a secret team for them to like be able to like beforehand itself figure out like what's the next game Squid Game would be like really such a strategical attempt by like Sangwoo and that girl is what I'm preferring. But like I'm preferring their whole strategy to like totally backfire. I'm preferring That strategy of the Squid and Perseverance would be only working right now alone. In the case of like the green liquid and Perseverance, like in the next time she would be like attempting like this very same strategy and trying to see and try to like see what's like probably like the next Squid game would be like. At that point, I'm Perseverance that has to get caught by like the Squid Game guard. Definitely my percent, and maybe like and maybe like in such a manner like I'm picturing like the strategy of someone that girls or that were with like I'm different. Maybe like in such a scenario like her getting caught and at that point like her totally deciding to like escape through that for air or like wind tunnel, and it would be like definitely exactly like correcting and still thinking to my person that like that whole wind tunnel would be like extending all throughout like the entirety of the studio, so it would be like an extremely huge maze of like a network of wind tunnels. So like I'm her to like decide to like hide away from like the workers and hide there and her trying to like figure out some other strategy. And that most likely that strategy would be to like to secretly take the life of one of the custodian worker and basically disguise as one of the custodian worker. Exactly like how the police guy like John Ho had basically John Ho had basically done like basically her as well like that way eventually like attempting the very similar strategy. So like an eventual possibility that I'm looking at the program as a very impression. So like definitely made the impression as for right now as for like what exactly like the second Squid Game right now that like the candidates including Sanjay like are about to participate. My personal impression that like right now since like the moment they entered into like the Squid Game second Squid Game room itself like they are right now like since they are the walls have like a lot of cloud drawn to it like I'm preparing like as for like what exactly the Squid Game would be. I'm preparing like there will be also anticipating for there to be like cloud drawn all throughout like that Squid Game second Squid Game room, including like the ceiling. Definitely my personal and I'm preparing from the ceiling. There will most likely great number of holes, tiny holes in like the ceilings through which like I'm preparing like the green liquid would be like uh, coming out or like pouring out as if like it's like a green liquid rain. It's definitely meant to bring it. And then both bring each of like the green candidates will be provided with like unique kind of umbrellas. And then both bring that green color liquid to be like some sort of like an acid. And then both bring like uh, the umbrellas that would be provided for each of like the Indian candidates would be like made of like material that can like totally temporarily withstand like the effects of that acidic green liquids for until like the game of like the Indian would be like until like the time limit of the Studium is implemented in very much. So like until almost like the time limit of like the Studium to be the current Studium would be over. Definitely very much. So like before that there are the task of each of like the each of the candidates would be most likely to like hold on to the to that exact umbrella and each of their umbrellas and ensure that like and for them to like race and move to that make it to like the finish line and while doing so like them like having to like position their umbrellas in such a precise and perfect manner so as to like ensure that not even a single green liquid falls onto like the clothes because like I'm remembering even that green liquid even falling onto their clothes would be like easily could like create like serious injuries and all that. It's definitely my very impression. So injuries of health issues so definitely my very impression. So like the task would be to like ensure that not even a single green liquid falls onto their the each of the candidates body, but while at the same time like basically them having to like make it to like the finish line in time because like I'm preferring like it would be only a temporary protection that like the umbrellas would be providing each of the Australian candidates like with like the uh, green liquid like each quantity of like the green liquid falling onto like the umbrella each of their umbrella like a rain shower like I'm preferring the umbrellas would be like quickly and slowly getting like deteriorated more and more. So like that is like the scenario that I'm also doing. So like making it to like the finish time within the time limit would be like before like the umbrella deteriorate enough for like the green liquid rain to like pass through like the umbrella and fall on to their floor. Basically, like that would be like the task of like the second Squid Game. It's definitely my good friends. Hence, like the title would be like the man with like umbrella. It's also definitely my good and correction. So like also my considering reason that I'm still thinking on those that like that like single Indian candidate who got like the red paper from his food like I'm preferring definitely like the first I'm still thinking about the impression that like the first Squid Game World Cup who basically saw like who precisely saw and who precisely have sufficient towards like John Ho as like John Ho was struggling with the keys to even enter like John Ho's like Squid Games World Cup room. And those bring definitely that precise neighbor of like John Ho who's like the Squid Game World Cup would be definitely the brother of like this precise could gain candidate who receive like the paper within his school definitely maybe rank. Especially that could gain worker that might have placed that paper and like that paper might read paper within his that could gain candidate who receives those like school. And about the bring like that paper might definitely contain like clues as to like what exactly the clues as to like what exactly the upcoming second could game would be. It's definitely my conclusion. So and about different maybe like uh, maybe it might only contain like the clues or like maybe it might contain like that paper might also contain clues as to like basically that like a kind of like a code that like from childhood like as for something that that says to game workup and only his brother might have know like something like that like being left on that paper as like a clue to basically communicate and let his like Strigian candidate brother know that like his brother is like right there as like a Strigian worker. It's definitely my personal theory and prediction. So like I'm putting that would be like the best reason for like that would say Squid Game worker like he might have definitely been like what like Janko heard like the note Janko heard in like the middle of the night might have definitely been like weeping and crying sound of like that precise Squid Game worker right next to like Janko's room and he would be like secretly crying because of like his shock of like seeing his like brother returning back to like this game like the second time. It's definitely my personal impression. So like definitely according to my personal impression, I'm definitely preferring like that the Sukian candidate who I'm also predicting to be like the brother of like the Sukian who like in like the press room right next to like the room of John. I'm also preferring that the Sukian candidate who received that red paper within his school, like and also during he would be like definitely through that paper, he would be definitely knowing like what like this current uh, he would be like through that paper would be he would have gained like knowledge as to like know beforehand as to like what the upcoming second game is. And I'm also bringing definitely solely due to that reason I'm also definitely putting like for him as a successful game candidate to definitely survive this exact second Squid Game. Definitely my personal impression. But like I'm also bringing that Squid Game candidate as well as his brother both of them to definitely eventually die is definitely my personal favorite. And I'm considering definitely like the fact that like that brother Squid Game worker like him like totally cheating like the Squid Game and basically passing in the all those like red papers and also bring that to like eventually in like maybe like the future and also the thing like that maybe like the thing of that him to like keep on passing just like a piece of paper each and every for each and every single Squid Game is like the scenario that I'm considering but like I'm considering eventually him that like passing of the red note like a red paper like I'm bring that to like eventually get caught by like the higher ups authorities in like red uniform in like the stadium. It's definitely or like I'm especially being caught by like the precise people behind like the CCTV cameras and to bring like them to like not likely people in like the red uniforms behind the CCTV cameras and to bring them to like eventually catch that precise stadium like cheating and passing in that recipe for responsible like the code eventually is definitely my contribution. And at that point, I was covering him getting captured and like him straight away like being taken the life of by like the frontman ordering like the most likely the triangle mask civilian uniform worker like I'm delivering most likely him taking like the life of that civilian worker and then like I'm delivering like the will be after taking the life of that successful game doctor that I'm bring like him not receiving and maybe like that like and after that like I'm going to bring like that Indian candidate brother not receiving any more papers from like the next game and I'm going to bring like the very next game I'm going to bring like the that brother candidate Indian candidate like into like definitely die in like the very next game with like and I'm going to bring him to totally panic with like the moment he won't be like receiving any more red note like red paper within the school like at that point I was him totally panicking about like starting to panic about like because like he would have totally gotten comfortable with like receiving like red papers and not giving clues as to like what the next Squid Game would be with the each and every single Squid Game until that point that I'm delivering once he all of a sudden stopped receiving that red paper like I'm delivering him to totally panic and I'm delivering him totally panicking not about his like further safety but like the possibility of like him not himself not being able to like survive like the next Squid Game. So like I'm delivering that whole panic and that whole uh, scare and like a lack of confidence and stress and things I'm delivering that to totally affect like that candidate's performance in like the very next Squid Game and those different him to like make a mistake in like the next Squid Game and the very next Squid Game and him dying in like the very next Squid Game is like the scenario that I was thing. And my question to you, also definitely my question to you question right now is that like also that Squid Game candidate especially because of like him uh, receiving that red paper within his foot like which I'm going to think would have definitely given clues as like what the upcoming game Squid Game would be like second Squid Game would be. So like I'm precisely because of the reason I'm preferring him to like that Squid Game candidate. So did you like anything like beforehand know as to like what the upcoming game would be like I'm preferring him to be like the very first Squid Game candidate to straight away take the lead is definitely my consideration. And I'm considering not only would be like in, it would be a scenario, I'm considering for to be a scenario where like he would be taking the lead, but like I'm considering it to be a scenario where like it would be the way in which like he would be like straight away taking the lead would be like even feeling kind of like suspicious to like the Squid Game workers in like the red uniform who would be like watching like the performance like and for like the front man and for them to like totally eventually developing a slight bit of like a suspicion towards like that successful game candidate only due to like the way in which like he would be performing, which would be like way better than even like that Sangu and that girl. Even though they would be like knowing like beforehand, like just even then like they would be only knowing like kind of like a even though seeing like the screen like they would only be having like a rough idea of like how like the second Squid Game would be, but still under the different through like a red note like that precise Squid Game candidate alone might be precisely knowing exactly how like this the second Squid Game would be getting played out. So like I'm referring him to like the way he would be performing. I'm referring slowly eventually get starting to like get more and more suspicious to like the Squid Game workers who would be like witnessing his performance along with like each and every single Squid Game. Like I'm considering that for Squid Game candidate who receiving like the who would be like eventually receiving like this like repeatedly receiving this like a red note with like each before like through the floor before each Squid Game. I'm considering him to like totally that game candidate only forgetting about like stealth and like about like making his performance seem convincing to like the convincing like the importance of making it like each brilliant performance seeming convincing to like the Studian guard who are like assessing like his like the performance of like each of the candidates. So like I was trying to totally forget about it and him totally performing to like knowing like each of like the upcoming Studian because beforehand and was preparing his performance alone. That was the Studian candidate's performance alone getting like more and more extremely suspicious to like the game of chess and I'm considering that would be how like James will be eventually finding out about like that precise exact single Squid Game worked up brother like basically leaving just like a red note on the foot and all that. It's definitely my impression that I'm looking at only for it. So like definitely my secondary impression that is still thinking on to the lazy with this precise Squid Game, the second Squid Game with like the clouds and cloud drawings as well as like the playground like and all the thing. This good game would definitely understand still think about this able to that like it will be set up in such a manner that basically to the like set intent to like break all the teamwork and basically that the and the bring like definitely but like them like when like the people are running like the game will be well fully aware that like the second time when all these Squid Game people who had escaped from like the Squid Game like the first time when they would be returning back like the second time they would be definitely straight away trying to like attempting to like form teams and like attempt like the Squid Game through teamwork as a team. So like to break that teamwork and the teamwork would be like one main intent behind and purpose behind like this like second Squid Game is definitely my favorite where like I'm looking it to something into my favorite that like the second Squid Game the playground studio will be set up and the file set up in such a manner that basically in order for like an individual candidate to uh, to like to increase like the probability of like an individual candidate to win that good game it will be like more advantages of that good game candidate try to take out like the uh, the candidate remaining Squid Game candidates like around him. It's definitely my personal opinion, and that way like uh, and that doing so would be like preferring the Squid Game being set up in such a manner, the second Squid Game being set up in such a manner that doing so would be like advantageous for like the individual to like to basically be and that will increase like the possibility of them being able to complete that second Squid Game. It's definitely my personal opinion, and that way to like precisely and completely destroy any teamwork attempt that basically like any team that will be like formed between like the Squid Game candidates is like the scenario that I'm preparing as for like how like the second Squid Game would be set up definitely about the revolution. But like I'm preparing definitely trying beyond like basically him definitely still sticking to like just like teamwork strategy and basically regardless of any disadvantage like I'm preparing him like Sangion taking them to like basically keep up that teamwork and that like they will still proceed as a team to like that way to like proceed as a team would be like that firm decision that I'm totally trusting out of like Sang Gion is definitely my person to be impression. That way I'm totally also protecting like Sang Gion like winning like the not only Sang Gion winning like, the second two game but like Sang Gion winning the second two game as like a team. Definitely I'm preparing right now, preparing definitely for like the old man with like dementia. Like I'm preparing him to totally have like dementia effect kick in precisely during like the second studium, midway after during like the second studium, with like the scenario that I'm preparing. But still, I'm preparing that a point of like and that point of like the teamwork would be like brought out through Sangion, where like I'm preparing this time Sangion will be actually lending in all that effort and help into that helping like the old man make it and finish complete like the Squid Game, but like at the cost of like the great possible increasing like the possibility of like them collectively failing like the Squid Game, but like just but then even then like just barely I'm delivering like by just in like the nick of time I'm delivering Sangyeon as well as Ali as well as like the old man being able to like complete like the game along with like Sangwoo like will be able to like complete like the game like the scenario that I'm delivering as like the moment like that they will be completing like the game itself like I'm delivering like a fight to most likely happen between like Sangwoo and Sangyeon connecting to like the old man like Sangwoo deciding to like help the old man basically that would totally that would totally anger Sangwoo and then also bring Sangwoo that being of like the mindset of like that basically Sang Leon should have like left like the old man and basically prioritize the safety of like other members of like the team. Uh, and then also bring Sangwoo being of like the argument also that basically that he would be like dragging like the entire team down and basically so like maybe for like Ambassador Sangwoo even saying along the lines of like basically for like to remove like the for manage like dementia from their team and all that as well is like in the scenario and that like especially Sangwoo like not at all agreeing to that and certainly a fight happening between the Warland fights happening between them was like the scenario that I'm looking at. It's just into my personal impression of like the positive of like basically like that extreme villainism possibly eventually developing within Sangwoo uh, like where like eventually ambassador maybe for Sangwoo even constantly attempting to like basically to trick like the old man into like making him like make a mistake in like the future games and that way to like take the old man out uh, in like a convincing manner would be like in such a way manner like ambassador some attempting in like the use of students, like the mental possible scenario as well that I'm also referring and not to so like definitely what I'm interested right now that's what like how exactly like the second Squid Game will be getting played out and then the with like the second Squid Game having like four symbols with like a circle, triangle as well as like an umbrella as well as star. Like I'm about to bring what each of these shapes would be representing would be like the umbrella. I'm about to bring like this basically what would be that this would be like the this would be that absolute teamwork shattering like Squid Game. This definitely the current second Squid Game is definitely not very much because like each of these four symbols would have to do just like four or among which like each of like the Syrian candidates would have to like pick one among like the four symbols, which would each have like a meaning of like playing like four different roles. It's definitely my favorite, and that's what like this exact for them to like be able to complete exact Syrian second Syrian. I'm considering like one at least one among them, one among like the student candidates would have to like successfully complete like the four playground things that are present. Like basically, at least one student candidate would have to like go through each of like go through and write each of the playground things to definitely my favorite. Each of like the four successfully would have to like write each of like the complete each of like the four playground things and like the task would be like basically while a single candidate would be attempting that like what would be happening would be like from like the ceiling and maybe from like most likely I'm thinking it would be most likely from like the ceiling alone that I'm different from all those or like I'm different from all those cloud drawings I'm different like there will be five holes through which like this green liquid would be like shooting out from that each of like the clouds is definitely not going to be ambushed. So like ambushed and that green liquid that's on the ambushed to be like an acidic kind of like liquid is definitely my ambushed. So like the ones who like to shatter the teamwork my ambushed that like the ones who would be like they could like the ones among the candidates that would be taking the umbrella and they would be like the playing the role of like the end supporter who would have to like play the role of like adjusting like their umbrellas in such a manner so as to like protect like that precise like single player who would be like attempting so that like that single player won't be dying by like won't get hit by like the green liquid while attempting each of like the playground play things especially while riding and attempting like each of like the playground play things especially my preference. So like successfully for like a single player to like complete each of like the four playground play things and without dying would be the task where like the umbrella would be like the umbrella symbol would be like the role of like the end supporters who have like placed their umbrellas in such a manner that like that single person could complete like all four playground things while considering like as for like the circle and considering the circle would be like the supporters who would be like supporting within like the will be like the next batch of supporters that would be like that won't be having like umbrellas like they would be like the ones that will be supporting that single player to be attempting each of like the four play things by even entering into like the game within like the supporters to get like entering into each of like the four playground play things but like their only goal would be definitely to like ensure that like that single player is able to like make it all the way through completing each of like the four playthings definitely without dying is definitely my goal very much. And so like while like people in like who would be picking like the green circle would have this role to play like the people who would be like taking the umbrella symbol would have the role to basically support the people with like the green symbol as well as like the support like the even more than supporting like the people with like the, who would be like supporting like the person and I'm considering that single person that would be like attempting all four of like the playground things would be like the precise one among the student candidates that would be taking like the red triangle that would be like the symbol of power. It's definitely my preference and the red triangle would be like the ones that would be like basically attempting each of like the four playground objectives like remember the pyramid and like the task of like the people who would be picking like the green circle symbol as well as like the umbrella symbol would be their task would be to like ultimate task would be to like ensure that like that precise single precise ones who would be taking like the red triangle symbol would be able to like complete like each of like the four playgrounds play games is definitely my good version. And as for like the star, like the yellow color star would be like precisely for like the ones who wants to like play independently. And I'm also like the ones who would be picking like the yellow star would be given a single umbrella. While for this like green liquid, acidic liquid would be like shooting from like the clouds, like I'm also like the ones who would be picking like the yellow star would be like the ones that would want to like play independently without like any help without any teamwork and like they would be just liberally given a single umbrella and their task will be to like play and complete like each of like the playground each of the four playground play things without dying all by themselves while holding on to a single umbrella or like they might be even given the freedom given they might be even given would be given like the freedom to like pick as many umbrellas they want but like they would have to like complete each of like the four playground play game like all by themselves definitely my personal interest. So like I'm personally putting it how like each of like the four symbols between like the red triangle and like the green circle as well as like the blue umbrella symbol as well as like the yellow star. Like this would be exactly what each of these symbols would be meaning is definitely my personal theory and prediction. Like it would be like each of these symbols would be most likely representing each of like, the different roles that like the each of like, the candidates have like the options to pick. Is definitely my personal theory and prediction. And so this would be how I'm talking right now as for like the whole entire teamwork between like between like the studio candidate like which like the people running like studio might have like expected like the second time they would be like re-entering into like the studio would be happening. Their attempt to like record this teamwork would be exactly through like this exact in such a manner right now that I right now theorizes definitely and predicted is definitely my personal theory and decision right now. So like I was in the impression that like once like the second game will be beginning at that point, if I was to bring like straight away initially itself, I was to bring a bunch of like among like the civilian candidates, like a bunch of them, I was to bring precisely picking like the role of like the star, yellow star is definitely my personal impression. And then wanting to like straight away initially itself like and then that way like trying to play independently is like the scenario that I'm also bring. But like I'm definitely bring each of like the ones that would be like picking the yellow star would be like ending up dying and not being able ending up failing to like complete each of like the four playground play things like all by themselves, like regardless how many umbrellas they will be able to like hold like impossible. Still impossible. Each of like the ones that will be making like the yellow star role and Ryan will be attempting to complete like the game independently. Each of them would be like dying is like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And I'm going to bring at that point was likely would be when like after all of them for the remaining candidates will be witnessing each of them dying at that point is when I'm going to bring most likely for like the Sugian candidate who had beforehand received that red note, which should have like the clue as to like how to complete this successfully complete this good game. And about the maybe like teamwork might have been what might have been possibly maybe a return within that red note definitely meant to remember. Like and at that point I was bring like initially once like everyone who attempt like the role of like the yellow staff and attempting to complete the game independently would be dying. At that point I was bring that the good game candidate who had received like the red note and was deferring him to straight away shout out to like the remaining student game candidate that he would do it like that he is going to take the triangle and like who all are there to like support him and able to bring him to like say that out, shout that out in like an extremely confident manner. And that possible that confidence like shortly like attracting a lot of supporters for him at that point is like the scenario that I'm able to bring. And I'm able to bring definitely maybe I'm able to bring like Sangyun and like the others and at that point, I was bring maybe for like Sangyeon and like the remaining like Sangyeon, maybe even like the aggressive guy, like I'm bring maybe like him to be like shocked by witnessing like all the people pick, all the initial people picking like the yellow scarf and like basically all of them, each and everything, one of them dying, one after another in the through the attempt. Maybe that might have like that might shake up like and scare, intimidate like even like the aggressive guy and the other that I'm bring maybe at that point it's just want like I'm bring the person who has received like the red note, he will be like shouting out that he would like he's like taking like the uh, triangle like a red triangle and basically who all of that support him. I'm going to bring maybe at that point for like even the aggressive guy as well as the girl as well as like Sangu and Sangyeon and like the government all possibly playing like the role of like the supporters which like among like supporters like I'm supposed to bring some of them like picking like the green triangle and like I'm supposed to bring like since like the title is like episode title is like the man with like the umbrella. I'm supposed to bring Sangyeon like the protagonist Sangyeon. I'm supposed to bring William of like picking the role of like the umbrella and I'm supposed to bring definitely like by the time like that possessed person who received like the red note like he would be like almost about to complete like the first play object like at that point like I'm supposed to bring like right before he right as soon as he would be about to complete it I'm supposed to bring like him being in like a situation where like absolutely no one would be like by then like I'm supposed to bring as he would be completing like successfully completing each and every single one of like the uh among like the four play things like as he would be progressing through each of like those play things like I'm supposed to bring great number of like the supporters like literally dying one by one like great number of supporters like I'm supposed to bring like dying as he would be progressing through each of like the play things. That's definitely my observation. But like I'm going to bring for like I'm going to bring by the time he would be making it to the last plaything, fourth and last plaything, like, and he would be like riding that and attempting like that last plaything. At that point, I'm considering like uh, possibly I'm considering at that point like absolutely no one possibly being able to like it being a situation where like absolutely no one possibly being able to like make it up to be able to like, or like the numbers not being sufficient for them to firstly be able to like protect him. At that point, it's like the scenario that I'm considering, and I'm considering at that point like Sangyeon getting like that ultimate spotlight with like the man with the umbrella being like Sangyeon at that point. That would be like totally outperforming, and basically everyone else and Dumble bring him to like precisely and perfectly support that precise candidate who would be attempting that final play things with like and considering solely due to like that Sangyeon's like bravery and like precise performance numbers for him being able to like that person who picked like the red note being able to like even complete like the fourth like play object as well, and basically playground play object as well, and that way like I'm considering like the ones remaining at that point like basically successfully having completed like the second studium at that point. And that is like the eventual scenario that I'm considering only putting another impression right now. So like according to my question to the impressions and samples, it all explain like the four symbols of like circle, triangle, and star and umbrella positions actually intended for like four specific roles and those different definitely among like the main characters like I'm definitely putting like the precise role like that I'm different for them to become different definitely for like the precise game candidate who got like the red note, and so for him to definitely eventually be the person to pick the role of like the triangle. That way him seeing like the precise person who would be like eventually attempting like the uh, for like playground play things, while I'm considering as for like the supporting role I'm considering definitely Sang-yeon as well as like the old man, as well as I'm considering like all the current teammates of like the aggressive guy, like I'm considering them as well. I'm considering most likely taking up the role of like the umbrella as well. It's definitely my consideration, like all of them taking the role of like the umbrella. Like the external supporting role, while like the internal supporting role, which I'm considering would be precisely like the green circle, which I'm considering definitely would be picked by precisely the aggressive guy and the girl, and basically like Sangwoo as well as Ali as well would be precisely like I'm considering like it would be most likely Sangyeon or like Sangwoo that is telling Ali as well to like precisely pick the green circles, precisely because of Ali having like a lot of strength, physical strength. I'm considering Ali as well, like ending up being part of like the training circle. So like I'm considering as for like the training circle, I'm considering it will be the team of like Sangwoo and like the aggressive guy and Ali and like the girl. This is definitely my personal impression. That definitely my personal impression. But like actually in this team, I'm definitely putting like that as for like that success girl who sadly wanted to like join like the team of like the aggressive guy and considering her as well to precisely pick the role of like the green circle, like the role of like the internal supportive role, and then more like trying to like support that uh, precise guy who got like the red notice, like, and that would be how like this game would be like completed. Just like the at that point would be how like this game would be completed. It's definitely my observation. So yes, so like definitely was the intention right now as for like some who like remembering like the correct like shapes of like circle, triangle, like star, as well as like umbrella. Company like Sun was like childhood, and especially like the old man with dementia as well. Like having a feeling as like he has seen those like four shapes before. Like it would only have to do like that in Sango's memory that of like his childhood. And in that playground, like I'm wondering, while Sang was playing along with like Sangyeon, like basically that surprise adult who was like eating sugar and making that dessert for them. Like I'm wondering that might have definitely that surprise adult was wearing a cap and basically making all this dessert for the children, for Sangwoo, Sangyeon and all the children that like eating sugar like that. Such adult wearing the cap might have definitely been this precise exact old man with like dementia during his younger days. It's definitely my brother very much. So like I'm definitely the like old man with dementia might have definitely been Sangwoo's son. This is in fact like definitely Sangwoo's father. The Sangyeon's like father. That's definitely my brother very much. So like I'm switching to my brother mentioned that like this old man with dementia exactly like Gion might have had this like extreme betting nature through which like I'm different like uh Sang Yeon's like mother might have definitely been from like a wealthy family, and like he might have, due to like Sang Yeon's like father's like extreme betting nature, like he might have totally lost it all, and basically Sang Yeon's mother, Sang Yeon's family might have like lost all their wealth. So like at that point, I was bringing Sang Yeon's mother might have not gotten a divorce from like this Sang-yeon's father, but still she might have totally moved away with like Sang-yeon. What might have happened if you remember the time? So like I'm considering, yeah, like she might have totally paid off like all the debts as well as like the rent of like Sang-yeon's father. Definitely remember the reimbursement. Like even to like the present day, like I'm considering right before like Sang-woo, Sang-yeon had basically like took away all the savings of like Sang-yeon's mother and put it all, lost it all to betting. Like until that point, I'm considering the all those savings. Like Sang-yeon's mother might have been like working hard and like might have been even to that point, like might have been like paying off like the rent of like Sang-yeon's father. That's definitely my consideration. So I'm considering it might be like the deal, like when Sang-yeon's mother in like certain parts might have moved away with like Sang-yeon, like Sang-yeon's mother might have moved away with like Sang-yeon in like certain parts, like the deal and condition that she might have told Sang-yeon's father might have been precisely uh, to never ever visit Sang-yeon, precisely because like she might have been Sang-yeon's mother might have been definitely extremely concerned for like Sang-yeon's future, like the last thing she might have wanted might have been for like Sang-yeon's father to like Sang-yeon to get influenced by Sang-yeon's father, and basically that way develop like the whole betting nature. That would be like the to protect Sang-yeon from developing a betting nature like his father. Might be like the precise reason for like the bright future of Sang-yeon might be the precise reason for like Sang-yeon's mother moving away with like Sang-yeon might have been what might have happened in like the recent past. Definitely might be the reimbursement. Like I'm considering precisely because of this reason, like Sang-yeon's mother at that point having most likely having told Sang-yeon's father to like never visit them ever again. So it might be precisely because of this reason that like I'm remembering like Sang-yeon's father might have stealthily might have definitely totally missed like Sang-yeon so much so that like he might have totally stealthily for him to like visit like Sang-yeon without Sang-yeon's like mother finding out and remembering he might have precisely showed up to like the precise playground where like Sang-yeon would be like playing along with like Sangwoo and their friends in that particular playground. Like every friend, they would like almost every day, like they would like after school, like Sangyeon and Sangwoo and all of them might play in that precise exact playground. Every evening is definitely my preference. So like for that every evening, like I'm preferring like this Sangwoo's father might have stealthily show up, and that would be the precise reason for like him even in like Sangwoo's memory, like him like that precise person adult who like heated sugar and made all those like desserts for them. Like him wearing a cap would be not due to like it being sunny, but like it would be precisely due to like him wanting to like conceal his identity because that other might have definitely been Sangyun's father, and him wanting to like conceal his identity, and hence him might have been like wearing the cap. It's definitely my personal theory and prediction. Like definitely my personal theory and prediction right now as for like now the fact that basically the precise spot shape being that precise exact spot shape from songs both like memory. And but there's something definitely like back then when in that first playground that the child song who had played like definitely in that first playground like definitely Sangyeon as well might have definitely be present, but like Sang in Sangyeon's case like he might have totally forgotten about all his memories as he grew up was definitely my own ambition. This precise exact memory of connecting to this precise exact portrait would definitely my own ambition. And I'm going to bring it to be exactly like due to like even while Sangyeon's father, like that old man with dementia has like kind of even though he might not be able to like pinpoint still he kind of feels as if like he has seen that portrait before, especially because like I'm also him being like the first person making that sport exact shape dessert in like that distant past for like Sangyeon and just like Sangwoo and their friends back when they were children. Like basically because of that, like if he would have like even more of like a memory, and that would be like the potential reason for like him even while him having his like dementia, like still him being able to like at least feel as if like he has like seen those what exact what shape before settling out of the ring. And uh, I'm considering like with that exact port shape from Sangwoo and I'm considering definitely not the Sangwoo and like Sangyeon as well as like the old man residents, all of their memories, like that precise exact portrait from all of their memories right now being present in like this precise second Squid Game. I'm considering definitely it would be that precise like the billionaire that I'm considering would be like running this entire Squid Game would be like precisely. Still thinking to my personal impression that basically the billionaire that would be running the center of the game would be like that child. Spoke like back then when they all used to Ben Sangu and Sangion and all of them were children back when they played like the Squid Game in their playground. Like basically, there might have definitely been that one child that might have always loved like the Squid Game. He might have, no matter how much he tried, like he might have never been able to like win the Squid Game, and he might have formed that extreme just like and jealousy within him towards like Sangion. It's certainly my best memory. But it was like it was like I think like he was like the best at like that exact game. And possible Sangu as well might have been definitely like the second best after like Sangion back when they were children by playing in like the game. It's definitely my best memory. And so like with each and every single time like Sangion repeatedly becoming like the Inspector Royal and all that might have been like extremely kind of like irritating for like that precise child who might have never been able to be like an inspector royal, not even once for like even like the team in which he would be passing might have definitely not even once might have been able to like win the food game. That child of food game is definitely my personal emotion. So like he might have never thrown out of all that like in the towards like Sangu and like specifically Sangi is definitely my personal emotion. He might have that child might have never grew out of that extreme jealousy and was like towards like Sangyom that time was during him eventually deciding to like do whatever it takes to like basically make a lot of money and like as he grew up like he might have had this like plan in his mind to like basically make Sangyom get revenge on like Sangyom and like he might have felt like wanting to like get revenge on like Sangyom and Sangu and not to do that like that him as he grew up, like deciding him thinking along the lines of to like go to like any extent, and then he might eventually came up with the idea of like creating this like ultimate squid, extremely dangerous ultimate squid game, and then trapping Sangwoo and Sanjeon into it. That's definitely my personal favorite. So like I'm considering maybe I'm considering even like the fact that like he might have definitely maybe like played a role throughout like Sangyeon and Sangwoo's like as they even grew up. That's definitely my concern, especially with like Sangwoo. Initially after like from like the university like Sangwoo like initially being in like a well-off situation in this like get like for like Sangwoo to like eventually take photos of like extreme risks and basically eventually ending up in like such extreme that might have this very much is that like the fact that like Sangu was like initially well off after passing like university and everything and basically was the fact that still that very same Sangu was even that very same Sangu to like eventually end up in like such an extremely desperate situation like for Sangu as well to end up in such a situation definitely like there might have been a role to play by Mr. Said child who eventually became a billionaire and had like a plan to like start like make this game like he might have definitely secretly might have had like a major role to play in like even Sangu ending up being in like an extremely dependent situation. Definitely one of the benefits right. He might have been what initially Sangu might have been well off. So like he might have been like he might have sent people like the best kind of people to basically eventually like tempt Sangu into like taking all that extreme risk and basically into like and that eventually might have spiraled into like Sangu even ending up in such extreme that is definitely mega sustainable. So like I'm considering like the person like the billionaire who would be like running like this good game would have definitely had like a direct role like considering like through his like men he might have definitely had like a specific and direct role and compared to all the remaining Squid Game candidates like specifically for like Sangyeon and Sangwoo I'm concerning Sangyeon and Sangwoo and maybe even concerning like Sangyon's father, like them for like eventually them ending up in like Squid Game and Ghost maybe like he might have had like some sort of like a major role to play. It's definitely my concern. Maybe like even Sangyeon who might have initially been not at all into betting and even with like Sangyeon's father and considering through like the four shape deserts and everything like even though he might have like maintained like that communication and contact secretly and steadily with like Sangyeon still and persevering he might have ensured to like do that in such a way that like Sangyeon wouldn't get like influenced by his like bettingness or even find out about like him being Sangyeon's father or like find out or eventually get into any basic nature. Like he might have like ensured that like such a scenario doesn't happen for like Sangyeon, but like I'm considering it might have been definitely just precise billionaire behind like the Squid Game that might have precisely targeted Sangyeon way more than even Sangwoo and might have ensured that basically eventually Sangyeon like falls into like basically like the temptation of like wanting to like of like basically betting like all the sorceries betting like it might have been something that like different Sangyeon might have been tempted into like trying by like some people who might have been precisely uh, done so under the precise orders of like that precise billionaire Todia right now running like Studio and definitely my person team as he grew up like it's that for this have to get revenge on Sango and Sanjo like he might have steadily observed like the growth of like Sango and Sango like as to like how they were growing up. So he might have secretly and at least spied and observed as like how Sango and Sanjo were like growing up and basically what they were doing and all that. So like eventually to ensure that like Sango and Sangon eventually ends up in like extremely depth-ridden situation like this precise villain behind the good game. Who might have definitely been like one of like the childhood friends of like Sango and Sangyeon from like their childhood days in like the playground. Yet like that child alone like having due to like not being able to like win like the child experience at all like in having developed like deep down that extreme sense of revenge and jealousy and dislike towards like Sangwoo and Sangwon and so as he grew eventually once he grew up like he might not only ensured that Sangwoo as well as Sangyeon ends up in like a depth-ridden state, and basically eventually that way he might have precisely your precisely this entire time it might have been things might have been totally going according to like his master plan, and like even currently like Sangwoo as well as Sangyeon even re-entering like the studio as well would be like totally part of like his plans. It's definitely like what might have happened is definitely my brother and so like Sangwoo and Sangyeon would be currently in like the trap of like that billionaire set up precisely and specifically for them. It's definitely my to them. And like all the remaining senior candidates would be just like a part of like that trap set up. Even though it might have been set up precisely targeting San Yeon and San Woo. It's definitely and maybe San Woo's father. It's definitely my reaction. It's definitely my reaction right now. As of like Sangwoo, like remembering, like, even after like remembering like the exact sport shape, like after like where exactly Sangwoo had even seen like that exact sport shape, like basically even then like with like Sangwoo around like getting all that memory, yeah, like Sangwoo keeping that a secret from like Sangyeon and but he would totally have to do like Sangwoo, unlike totally it would be like totally the opposite of like Sangyeon, but like Sangyeon would be like mainly like a straightforward capital cat who would be like straight away able to like say things up front, like basically like Sangyeon would be like Sangyeon would be such a character, and but Sangwoo would be like the opposite, kind of thing like be like struggling to like keep things straightforward and say things up front, especially when the influence. So like I'm considering even Sangwoo like even Sangwoo's act of like saving Sangyeon back in like the very first trillion might have been out of like Sangwoo that extreme feeling of like that depth and gratitude like Sangwoo might have had towards like Sangyeon due to like Sangyeon having like the past having helped Sangwoo a lot uh, in terms of like Sang, I think like in terms of like Sangwoo getting into like the university and everything. So like it might be due to that feeling of like depth and gratitude towards like uh Sangyeon that like Sangwoo might have helped Sangyeon in like the very first billion. But right now as for like Sangwoo keeping his like the memory that he has gained about like the portrait and his like their childhood and all that, like the fact that like Sangwoo is keeping that a secret right now from Sangyeon and considering to especially because of like Sangwoo with this nature of not being able to like say things straight up front, like straightforward and but to Sangyeon and considering like him like silently wanting Sangwoo right now would be silently wanting like Sangyeon to like uh die in like the second full game. It's definitely my preference because like right now Sangyeon would be like Sangwoo would be totally seeing Sangyeon as like an ultimate burden for him. It's definitely my preference, especially because of like him having that feeling of gratitude towards like Sangyeon within him that will be creating a disturbance whenever like Sangyeon like and I'm remembering initially Sangwoo might not only might have been okay with like teaming up with like Sangyeon, but like the moment Sangyeon might have told Sangwoo that basically that in their saying like they're that like that when Sangyeon had like revealed to her, like Sang-woo about like him wanting like the old man with dementia as well to be part of their team. At that point itself, I was different Sang-woo might have fixed in his mind to like definitely not team up with like Sangyeon. Especially when the mentioned because like at that point, that who might have totally felt that basically adding like the old man with like dementia to their team would definitely greatly reduce like the chances of like not only survival but like even winning the game and getting the money. It would be one thing that like totally Sango might have felt. Yet like he might have due to like things not being able to like say things up front or straightforward to like Sangyeon and but like him not being able to like say it to like Sangyeon. So like I'm so he might have only remained silent and he might have then like at that from that point on of self example might have decided to like find someone else to be part of like his team. Might have been what Sangu might have felt. It's definitely might have very impression. So like this might be like the first reason for like for like definitely my very impressions that like so especially because of like Sangu uh, definitely on top of this like nature which for like character which I'm considering would be like the opposite of that or that of like a straightforward nature and considering on top of that like the fact that Sangu would be having that would be feeling that depth and gratitude feeling towards like Sangyeon and considering precisely because of that like he won't be able to like bring himself to say that like direct and sharp no to like Sangyeon. So like I'm considering precisely because of this reason I'm considering like Sangu right now would be like instant like totally hoping that basically Sangyeon's not and like Sangyeon doesn't wouldn't be able to like survive like this precise exact second split game and to increase that possibility would be like the precise reason for like Sangwoo precisely keeping that memory of like of their childhood and like the connecting to like that portrait and basically a secret from Sun beyond is definitely my personal energy. So that way to like increase the possibility of like people with a son, you're like ending up tying like the dying while playing while attempting like the second city especially would be what Sangwoo would be like totally attempting for a fight and hoping for right now. It's definitely my other brand. So like I'm different like Sangwoo like keeping up hoping this exactly to happen for like something to go wrong with like Sangyeon. Like each and every single time Sangyeon would be like playing like the Squid game. But like I'm considering like that also like expectations of Sangwoo totally backfiring each and every single time that like Sangyeon like even while Sangwoo on the other hand would be like even more like having that kind of like an idea like what the upcoming Squid game would be. I'm considering like each and every single time before like the next Squid game I'm considering Sangwoo somehow building up connection and all sorts of connections and somehow being able to like figure out like or like get any sort of like at least the time switch of flow as like what possibly like the next full game will be. Yeah, like I'm considering Sango totally keeping that a secret from for Sangyeon and I'm considering Sangyeon without like any like previous knowledge at all like as like what like the next full game would be. I'm considering Sangyeon still like entering each and every single Squid Game flawless. Yet like I was bringing like that whole muscle memory of like Sangyeon's like childhood of his playing like the Squid Game back then during the childhood and being like the best in like the Squid Game back then. Like I was bringing that whole muscle memory like eventually totally kicking in with, to like Sangyeon and I was bringing Sangyeon eventually turning into that spontaneous like best Squid Game candidate who would be like walking into like each and every single Squid Game absolutely clueless and yet would be able to like eventually be able to like perform better than everybody else and that absolute leader title like eventually falling on to like Sanjeon. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm also to is like I'm also even Sang was still maybe getting jealous. It's definitely my personal impression and I'm also maybe like Sang will like eventually like dressed into future wanting to like basically be part of like Sangu like the future maybe like wanting to be part of like Sangyon's team. It's also definitely my personal impression. And definitely specifically to my personal impression that exactly like the whole I'm considering like the past to repeat itself. So like in like the past since like Sangyeon was like all usually was always like back during like the childhood Squid game like since it was like Sangyeon that was like always like most of the time was like the first inspector first person to like first make it to like the halfway checkpoint like area and get the title of Inspector Royal and this time as well in like the present serious to game as well and the dangerous to game as well and the different like after like the third game, definitely there will be a checkpoint, and I'm preferring like first to complete like the third game. I'm preferring would be getting some sort of like a like a benefit like that's like kind of equivalent to like a Squid Game, the Ranger Squid Game version of like an Inspector Royal benefit. Like I'm preferring that would be something along the lines I'm preferring like Sangu would be getting, Sangion will be getting. I'm preferring Sangion definitely being like the first person to like complete like the third Squid Game and get that title. And I'm still thinking to my person today, I'm mentioned that like most likely that added benefit of like that Inspector Royal like title would be precisely an extra added like extra chance, and that extra chance I'm considering definitely would be like Sangyeon would be getting like that basic, so that like even if like Sangyeon failed a Squid Game once, like Sangyeon would be not taking the life off at that point, and Sangyeon will be getting at least one more chance. Exactly like how in like the type of Squid Game, like being like making it to like I think like to like the halfway checkpoint and becoming like the Inspector Royal Grand, like the ability to like basically in the game, like being able to like walk on two legs rather than one. And considering that would be like symbolizing or like foreshadowing like Sangyeon like in like the after like completing like the first two complete like the third Squid Game and basically getting that benefit of Inspector Royal like thing where like Sangyeon would be alone would be getting that extra chance. That was definitely my social theory and prediction that I'm still sticking on to. So like definitely I'm considering right now for like Sangyeon to like precisely pick the star while the trying to be like the old man with like dementia that will be picking like the umbrella. Certainly not the represent because like and it would be like Sangyeon picking like star would be precisely because of like star like would be like gives the feeling to like Sangyeon as it's like victory and like surprise along with such like this is like Sangyeon has like the history of like totally into like betting and everything like they really for that ultimate prize like ultimate first spot like along such lines it would be like the feeling that like Star would be giving to Sangyeon to get that absolute first place like this that would be considering along the lines like it would be like star would be like the symbol of star would be like giving such the sort of feeling to like Sangyeon. So like I'm looking at like Sangyeon picking like the star while old man will be like picking like the umbrella. And I'm certainly protecting this game I'm preparing definitely like the old man to like still survive. Like the old man doing I'm preparing still surviving this game as well. It's definitely my benefit. And definitely I'm preparing maybe like definitely Sangyeon definitely not likely even playing a role in like really helping out like the old man in like basically and still into like the possibility of like most likely like the old man having some like but kicking into midway into like the exact second good game. But like I'm preparing Sangyeon like it's then going out of his way to basically protect like the old man and I'm preparing or never implement and that way I'm also bring that him to definitely survive this game as well. The second Squid Game as well, I'm definitely bring that the old man with black and as well will definitely survive. Certainly my person and basically my person to person right now is that like is according to my person theory like Sangyeon picks the star and like the, even according to my person theory like Sangyeon picking the star would meaning that would be resulting in like Sangyeon having to like play those four playground games all by himself while Sanjon would be having like the access to like pick any number of umbrellas Sanjon wants to get like Sanjon would be like forced to like at that point like shield himself from like the green acidic kind of like mix for layer the kind of like kind of liquid rain all by Sanjon himself like I'm considering such a scenario is what I'm considering and I'm considering still Sanjon all by himself like basically that about maybe it would be during this game that I'm delivering, maybe like Sanjun will be like having just like memories of like playing like childhood Squid Game. He can and I'm delivering maybe like halfway in this game, like Sanjun initially in this game like all by himself, like while playing like each of like the four starting off with like each of like the four like playground games like at that point like Sangyeon totally being scared and afraid but like then Sangyeon remembering his like days childhood days when he used to play this game from his childhood and then like Sangyeon like basically ambitiously and determinedly like a determined manner like Sangyeon like totally completing like the remaining three of like the four playground games and Sangyeon alone like all by himself like basically Sangyeon alone like maybe all by himself like completing and surviving like the second Squid Game is like also like a possible scenario that I'm considering and I'm considering maybe after that like I'm considering Sangyeon maybe even like going to the extent of like wanting to like help like the old man who would have picked umbrella, and by picking the umbrella the old man would be definitely stitching the members that like would be playing like the supporting role, would be most likely what the old man will be getting at. Like the old man will be forced to like support Sangwoo, who would be since like picking the triangle like empowering Sangwoo would be like while Sangwoo would be attending each of like the four playground games like at that point like the old man and like a bunch of others like even Ali who picked like the green circle uh would be like playing the role of that added support to shield precisely Sangwoo, and that way to like help Sangwoo out in like attempting for the fourth playground game. So like I'm preparing that to be like a scenario with like I'm preparing Sang Gion like basically completing all four games all by himself, and I'm preparing right now preparing like then for and it would be I'm preparing it would be after like Sangyeon that I'm preparing Sangwoo will be like attempting the game, and at that point I was preparing the old man holding the umbrellas, and I'm preparing like while the old man would be playing like that uh, game Squid game second Squid game along with like Sangwoo. I'm preparing the old man's like dementia but kicking in, and at that point I'm preparing maybe like Sangyeon like seeing this and be feeling like genuinely worried for like the old man, and maybe at that point I'm preparing like Sangwoo totally shouting out to like the guards in like Korean guards in like a ready uniform that basically if Sangwoo has the permission to like if Sangwoo can Sangyeon can basically at that point Sangyeon and preparing shouting to like the guards in ready uniform like he could like once again play play this very exact game once again, and maybe I'm preparing at that point for like the guards giving like the permission to like Sangyeon, and I'm preparing at that point Sangyeon being like the man with the umbrella, and basically even after like Sangyeon already having survived like the second Squid game after picking the star and completing all four games within like the second Squid game all by himself, playground games by himself, like even though Sangyeon could at that point prioritize his own safety and try to and just move on to like third Squid game, but still Sangyeon like deciding to like put his life at risk again, like basically just to like save the life of the old man with like dementia, and I'm preparing such a scenario to happen, and basically Sangyeon picking the role of uncle, and like Sangyeon like walking into like that whole rain-filled playground, and basically Sangyeon like supporting like the old man with umbrella precisely with this dementia state, and preparing like Sangyeon like being like the man with like the umbrella and walking straight up to the and I'm preparing Sangyeon precisely supporting like the old man, helping the old man out, and with like Sangyeon's help, about to bring like the old man as well, like surviving like the second Squid game as well. And I'm going to bring at that point like definitely Sangwoo as well would have totally along with them would have completed like the second Squid game as well. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm going to bring. But like at that point I'm going to bring Sangwoo being like extremely kind of kind of irritated, kind of but like I'm supposed to bring him concealing that within, and I think not expressing with like irritation yet, I'm supposed to bring Sangwoo totally being irritated within due to like the fact due to seeing like the act of Sangyeon like putting his life at risk and saving like the old man, and basically the fact that the old man survived and would be surviving at that point, all that would be like totally irritating Sangwoo at that point within those departing, which like Sangwoo won't be like expressing right now in front of like Sangyeon is like the mental scenario that I'm only departing and my personal reaction. Yeah, so like definitely reaction right now for like Sangwoo falling like Sangyeon from behind would wait, and yet like him then saying like nothing would be like if we were falling Sangyeon from behind, like so that Sangyeon was about to go up to like umbrella position, like I'm going to definitely into that extreme guilt within like Sangwoo within him that will be building up more and more as like precisely because of like him knowing him being able to recollect the memories of the fourth shape and the and of it being like precisely like connected to their childhood, and yet like him like withholding and keeping that information all to himself and not telling that information to like Sangyeon, to whom he definitely deep down knows that he owes so much. Something like that would definitely that thoughts would definitely be important, creating more and more of that absolute guilt within Sangwoo. And that would give that definitely would be like the reason for Sangwoo wanting to like tell that and reveal that to like Sangyeon to get like with Sangyeon often mentioning like the fact that he wants to like team up with like Sangwoo and like strategies and team strategies and everything like I'm considering like each time like Sang Yeon would be mentioning this and repeating this like I'm considering Sangwoo would be like feeling more and more of would be feeling Sang Yeon as like more and more of a burden for like Sangwoo. So like I'm considering especially because of that like Sangwoo might have decided to like just say no, it's nothing, and basically that might have been like Sang Yeon like at that very last moment, like Sangu at that very last moment, feeling as if like he would be like feeling as if like he would be better off and like he'll be having like chance would be having better chances of survival if like basically um, if basically Sang Gion dies and that way like the if land possibility would be thinking like without Sang Gion definitely the old man as well would be like totally dying, and without them like I'm suffering he wouldn't have that burden anymore, and he would be that Sang would be able to like play the Squid Game freely according to his according to like the exact ways in which like he feels is like proper and precise. It's definitely my personal but like I'm considering eventually like it would be that absolute selfishness within like Sangwoo due to like Sangwoo's own situation, like that selfishness, current situation, extreme danger situation, like that I'm considering like that situation, like most likely having pressured like Sangwoo into like taking the selfish decision to like basically keep that information of like the pop shapes still within Sangwoo and not reveal it to like Sangyeon might have been what might have happened. It's definitely my within reimbursement. So like definitely my within reimbursement right now as for like the you have to have stolen like the 4 million from Sangyeon, like right now precisely even staring at Sangwoo would be precisely due to like her precisely being able to like realize what's going on with like Sangwoo even while being Sangyeon even by being like the friend of like Sangyeon, like basically the betrayal, that absolute betrayal that would be like that's like happening at that moment, like I'm considering her to be able to like precisely read that the betrayal of like Sangwoo towards like against like Sangyeon. And I'm considering like definitely there would be that extreme empathetic side within her that I'm considering which would be personally causing her to precisely pick right now I'm considering her she might have initially decided to like pick not the umbrella but like I'm considering because of like after like witnessing this betrayal of Sangwoo I'm considering her deciding to like definitely pick the umbrella, and I'm definitely putting like her to like seriously help out like Sangyeon and ensure that like Sangyeon survives this exact Squid Game. This is like the scenario that I'm definitely putting right now and my definitely understand. So like definitely my definitely understand right now it's definitely for like a remote possibility that I'm definitely putting just a remote possibility that I'm definitely putting is for like the precise Squid Game candidate who received like the red note possibly being like three millionaire that's like basically are running like the Squid Game actually being that surprise Squid Game candidate. So although like the other property that I'm considering it was like I'm considering because like back during childhood when Sangwoo and Sangyeon and all of the all their friends were children and were playing like their childhood Squid Game like at that point just besides according to my program besides still among them like who might have always not been at all able to like win like the Squid Game at all and never might have been able to like be like the Inspector Royal at all like I'm considering that besides kid eventually growing up and like basically that kid back then still having this extreme jealousy and it's like towards like Sangwoo and Sangyeon. And basically as he grew up like him coming up to forming up this like plan in his mind to like create like the ultimate danger game in which like I'm considering he might have wanted like after growing up he might have wanted like still compete with like without like Sangyeon or like Sangwoo's realizing it like he might have wanted to like compete with them in this like extreme danger region that he himself would have created, and he might have wanted to like compete with them, and that he might in like a rigged Squid Game that he would be creating. And that would be like the reason for like that Squid Game candidate receiving that red note with like giving clues as to like basically like the second Squid Game is definitely my memory. So like that Squid Game Squid Game candidate might actually be like the billionaire that's like running like this Squid Game is definitely my memory. So we might have never let go of like that thoughts of like that irritation and that feeling of like never being able to like defeat Sangwoo and Sangyeon. Then basically he might after growing up he might have hold on to like those feelings wanting to get revenge and to defeat, not only defeat like Sangyeon and Sangwoo, but like also witness in the process, through the process of defeating them, also wanting to like witness their deaths as well. Basically, it might have been like how much like of a like a villain stigma mindset like he might be currently having a step in the so like I'm preferring that candidate right now. Uh, like my opinion versus that like that candidate, Indian candidate who achieved like the red note might be trying to plan on like competing with like Sangu and Sangyeon in like the range of skill game in like a rich manner with him alone getting close as to like what exactly to do in like each of the skill games and that way for him to like defeat them and that way like I'm delivering even through a rich manner uh sealing and rich manner he might be trying to like attain the a certain level of satisfaction what we would be trying to like attempting to like attain and that way to like defeat that way to like make like to himself into like making himself think of feel as if like he has actually defeated finally defeated like Sang Yeon and Sang-woo in like the Squid game would be like this plan is definitely also my possible reimbursement. So like I was definitely putting like the positive of like that Squid game candidate to like the not possibly being like the cause the like person running like the entire studio is also definitely not the reimbursement as for like a remote possibility that I'm listening to thing. So like basically being short like I'm just putting like that perfect Squid game candidate to basically really receive like the red note containing like the word Dalgona precisely is the name of like this precise second studio. So you precisely might have been able to find like that precise Squid game candidate or by himself might have practice like this each of like the six Squid Games like multiple times to step limit on the to totally prepare himself by the time like he would be like trapping and bringing Sangu as well as Sangyeon. His would be like his childhood friend soon. And of course, different in like Sangu for Sangu and Sangyeon might have never seen like he might have totally gone missing since like it would be only after like their childhood days like both onwards as a Sangyeon as they grew up might have totally not at all seen that particular single childhood friends of theirs so secondly my perspective. So like he might have gone somewhere else and might have been like this entire time like the thoughts of like wanting to get revenge on like Sangwoo and Sangyeon and to give them in like a extremely dangerous game might have been like that thought might have been grown during that time and everything right now in like the person that he would be like playing along with like the person who got like the red Squid game uh a red note like while he's like playing along with like Sangyeon while he would be seeing he's like eating and playing along with like Sangwoo and Sangyeon with like the intent to get revenge on them like both Sangyeon as well as Sangwoo as well as like the old man with like dementia who basically who the three of these people who might have known that precise Julian candidate who received like the red notes from his childhood that still they won't be like right now be able to like at all recognize him solely due to like him most likely having like stayed away from them since like his childhood like I was bringing up he grew up like he might have that schooling and everything like at some different location. So definitely my first range. So like especially Sangwoo and Sangyeon as well as like the woman won't be able to like in their current situation like they are not able to like recognize that the game candidate so definitely my first range. So like it will be he will be only revealing that and will be bringing in like the very distant future. It's definitely my first version as like him like being like the as like him being like the person that's like running like the entire game. It's definitely my first impression and even in like and like him eventually got the very end like making it public and basically him even telling Sangwoo and Sangyeon that basically like making it like making it out him not trying to even hide it anymore at that point is also like the scenario that I'm looking that like he's like totally cheating and bringing his the game into his way into like trying to win the game yet like I'm bring eventually Sangyeon to like still even while realizing all this like and even while like that game can that would be uh, playing this game in such an extremely unfair manner like I'm going to still Sangyeon eventually totally defeating him like the scenario that I'm just only putting for like the very distant user and still sticking on to end my personal immersion. So like luckily my personal immersion right now as for like the trending of like the shape of like the selection of like game candidates is in only like the first phase or like the just take the first part alone of like the second school game is definitely my personal immersion. I'm also like the second school game being like of two phases. It's definitely my personal immersion. Like the trimming of the shape part would be only phase one of like the second skill game is definitely my preparation. And as for and my preparation and the reason I'm remembering is especially because of like the green liquid. Definitely like the green liquid definitely and like the cloud drawing would definitely have like a role to play in like the second phase of like the second skill game. Definitely my preparation. Like after trimming out like or the honeycomb shapes it will be only within like the 10 minutes. It will be only after like the 10 minutes will be passing that and preparing like the actual through Squid Game. Second Squid Game will be beginning. It's definitely my opinion. It's like the phase two of like the second Squid Game only being revealed only at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm about to bring. And that I'm about to bring to give like another shock to like the first Squid Game candidates at that point. Except for that single Squid Game candidate alone who got the red nose. It's definitely my impression. Changing into my impression that him all by himself like might have precisely like shared the precise Squid Game building and practice over and over and over again each of like the six Squid Games until like he was absolutely sure that he was like ready to like basically lure and trap Sangu and Sangyeon into like this precise Squid Game building and to compete along with them in a stealthy manner. It's definitely my impression as for what might be right now happening and what might have happened in like the past. It's definitely my impression. It's like definitely not very impression right now. It's definitely or like in the case of like Sangyeon, exactly like in like the very soft Squid Game red light, green light, you be able to bring like a similar situation for like for Sangyeon, where like I'm considering definitely this time as well. I'm considering like Sangyeon would be like completing like the like even while like the countdown would be like in like the 10 minutes like when like the countdown like almost when it's like only 10 seconds remaining like for like the 10 minutes to complete like even with like 10 seconds remaining I'm considering even at that point like Sangyeon would have like completed like the just like cutting out of like the honeycomb shape, especially my Victoria versions. But like I'm considering like in that very last second, I'm considering like Sanji like I was totally putting it all on like and basically putting out like a huge chunk of like a piece and I'm considering totally and purely the like sheer like totally playing in like Sanjion's favor, like I'm considering that shape that Sanjion would be like pulling out within like the last few seconds, like would be like miraculously happening to be like the exact cutout of like the shape and basically exactly the shape of like the Sanjion. The and I'm considering Sanjion being like the would be like the I'm considering would be like the only person who got who would have got like the umbrella shape to basically complete like the umbrella shape. It's like the scenario that I'm also putting like in like the very last second I'm also putting like would be when like Sangyeon would be completing his like cutting out of like the cutting out part of like the second Squid Game is definitely my personal I'm passing is definitely my personal impression as for like the eventual scenario that I'm personally talking about. So well, like definitely my personal impression right now as for like the girl who basically desperately wanted to like join like the Squid Game team of like the aggressive guy. Like basically her right now in like the second Squid Game, like basically lighting up like using a light and lighting up like the end of her needle to like basically cut out like her scar shape. Like I'm considering and still for her to not get found out while there are all these great number of CCTVs monitoring each and every single candidate playing in like the Squid Game. And on top of that, like basically, on top of the frontman monitoring all of them, like even on top of that, like there being like all these great number of like game workers in like red uniform as well behind like another set of like CCTV monitors, and even on top of that, like the fact that there are also like all these great number of game workers in like studio workers in like red uniform present within like that precise second good game room as well precisely present there physically as well to like precisely do the real life monitoring as well of like each and every single Squid Game candidate playing like the second Squid Game and yet for like that precise girl who desperately wanted to like join like the aggressive guys team like that basically that precise girl be like allowed to like so casually like hide under one of like the playground playthings hide under it and basically so casually light up use her lighter and basically light up heat up like the end of her needle and basically to be able for her to be able to like so casually and so easily be able to like cheat in like the second Squid Game and cut out like the cast shape for that to even be possible for her to do without getting caught. I'm considering it could definitely have to do with like definitely I'm considering like it might have to do with like the most likely according to my considerations I'm considering like the percent Indian candidate who got like the red paper will be most likely the person, the billionaire who like who might be only running like the Squid Game like would be that person in just disguise as a Squid Game candidate. And since my consideration that like so that way, like he would be like trying to cheat his way into like get revenge on like Sangwoo and Sangyeon into like basically defeating them in like a through like a rigged Squid Game gameplay. So different like maybe it may be precisely because of like the person running Squid Game himself with like cheating and those things. He might have given an order to like all the Squid Game workers in like the red uniform that basically even in any of like the Squid Game, any of like the other candidates performing like playing the Squid Game, like even if any one of like, them cheat in such a manner that that cheating is like uh, carried out in like a cunning enough manner, then like I'm saying, even that cheating could be like allowed, would be like kind of like an order that I'm preferring like that. Because person who's like running the Squid Game like might have definitely given that order orders to like for the people in like the red uniform is definitely my preference. So like this is definitely my preference and for like they're being on this like monitoring in like that precise second Squid Game room on top of like what great number of that people in like Squid Game workers in red uniform as well present within that precise like Squid Game room as well. Yet like for them to like totally miss out on like that precise girl who's like using the lighter to like cut out such star shape would definitely be on purpose is definitely my consideration. And those they would have not at all missed out and they would have precisely seen her cheating like that precise second Squid Game and using her light. But yet like I'm considering like what she did might be falling under like the category of like cheating where like the cheating is like might be considered as like under the section of being like it being like cunning enough or like and hence like impossible she might be allowed to cheat in such a manner and hence why that she might not be having her life taken by like the Squid Game guard in like red uniform. It definitely my person to be emerged and that would be like sort of for like her even being allowed with even being allowed or even being able to like cheat in like the second Squid Game. It's definitely and cut out that star shape using her life. It's definitely my person to be emerged. Okay, so like definitely my very impression right now that like the first good game worker number 29 like would definitely be John Ho. It's definitely my impression. The police officer John Ho is definitely my very impression. Yet like I'm preferring even right now while John Ho is questioned by like the good game worker with like the square mask and John Ho gives the excuse that he was confused. Like still my business impression that like that the good game worker with like the square mask definitely bought that excuse of John Ho. It's definitely my very impression luckily that Surya Murtha would like to Swarna definitely has got it and definitely genuinely believes that Janho is like was like actually confused that and just being like sole reason for like Janho right then like being out of place during that precise second Squid Games is definitely my good dream and this is precisely because of another reason and for my this certain theory and prediction is precisely because of like that the Squid Game worker in like the Swarma asking Janho as to like what his duty is get like without making or forcing jump force to like give the reply and that way like increasing the possibility of like being able to like reveal that jump force like an infiltrator like basically since like the successful game worker in like the squad mark himself straight away replies before jump force would even answer as to like what his duty is like the fact that like the successful game worker with like the square mark itself like himself even gives the reply and answer before jump force could like reply that basically Janho's duty, actually like what exactly Janho's duty is, would be precisely because of this exact reason, precisely because of him genuinely believing that like Janho is genuinely it will be because of him like the place to game worker with like Sperma that genuinely not suspecting Janho's the possibility of that like Janho's like an infiltrator is definitely not a so definitely, but what I'm going to only person is like after like second Squid Game will be over. I'm preparing only for like that red Squid Game, red mask Squid Game worker to like give a warning to Junho as it to like as it to like if he makes one more mistake like that might even cost Junho's life along such lines like him warning Janko while thinking that while still thinking that Janko is like not while still not realizing that Janko is like an infiltrator and while totally thinking that like Janko while totally buying like Janko's excuse and genuinely believing that Janko is like an actual Squid Game worker. It's definitely my personal theory and my personal function. So like definitely my personal theory and prediction right now as for like the precise Squid Game candidate who received like the steadily received like the red no containing what like the second Squid Game was like before like the second Squid Game within his like food like precisely that percent good game candidate with like the number 111, like being led, stealthily being led in like him alone, stealthily being led in like a different direction after completing like the second Squid Game by like more than by multiple Squid Game workers. Like definitely, I'm still sticking to my personal impression that this would all be definitely because of like him that the first Squid Game candidates with like the number 111 him being precisely the billionaire that like actually running like the Squid Game and him also being like the childhood friend of Sang-woo as well as Sang-yeon, who back in childhood, back from childhood even to like the present day, might have definitely been like extremely jealous of like Sang-woo as well as Sang-yeon being able to play their childhood Squid Game even way better than him. And that way, like him keeping that jealousy, him having made him not being able to grow out of that jealousy and him as he grew up, like basically him turning a billionaire and him creating this the danger of Squid Game just for like just to defeat like Sang-woo and Sang-yeon and get revenge through like having them Sang-woo and Sang-yeon die in like the Squid Game while sometimes he's also able to like defeat them in like the Squid Game. It's definitely that will be his way of like his idea of like getting a revenge on Sang-woo and Sang-yeon. And in order to do this, like he would have on top of like personally by himself, like practicing all these lectures to Williams by himself. Like before like the official William began, like he might have personally, personally by himself, like might have trained and repeatedly practiced each of like the six Williams by himself. And on top of that, like I'm considering him also like setting up the William in such a manner that like the game would be rigged, that he would be like even beforehand would be able to like through these red papers, like him being able to like precisely able to like know beforehand as to like what the next two game even would be. It would be all that's like happening right now. It's definitely my preference, and especially because of that, the first two game candidates like even number being like 111, like 3 1s, like I'm referring to precisely because of that extreme obsession that he would be having towards like the Squid Game that he might have never grew out of that. Basically, he might have had his ultimate goal in mind to be like the ultimate best winner like that. Even though he wasn't able to win it in like his like back when he was a child, even though he wasn't able to win in his like childhood Squid Game, like at least he would still be having that obsession to like win the Squid Game so much to the extreme that basically that would be the precise reason for like him ensuring that that Squid Game candidate would be like the winner who's running to send up the stage of Squid Game. Him like ensuring that he gets that precise chess number of like 111 that like he's like number ones like 3 times like basically he's like fully like he's like all three of his numbers are filled with like one that he's like he's going to be the ultimate number one winner of like the Squid Game at least this time. It would be like due to his like mind being obsessed with that thought that I'm also corrected. His chess number even being precisely 111 is definitely my secondary impression. Also my considering impression right now is that like say Squid Game candidate one with like the number 111 number considering like him where exactly like the Squid Game workers in like the red uniform and triangle mask like where exactly they would be like leading him along to be precisely towards like the front man, the room where like the front man is like the besides Squid Game worker with like the black uniforms, the front man. I'm preparing right now for like the practice possibly being maybe being even being revealed right now. It's also like a possibility that I'm preparing with like the first Squid Game candidate with like the 111 number. Like I'm preparing him right now, eating like the front man and like the whole talk and discussion with him and the front man and like then discussing about like how to set up like the which Squid Game to like basically for like which as for like what exactly the third Squid Game exactly should be among like the six Squid Games like which exactly should be like the next third Squid Game should be like to discuss that would be like the precise reason for like him alone like being led to like that said 111 Squid Game candidate alone going a step going being taken to a different direction certainly my personal impression and considering it would be extremely important for like the Squid Game candidate with like the 111 number, precisely because of like the third Squid Game definitely possibly being like extremely crucial because of like the total Squid Game number currently being 6, and so like there would definitely be that checkpoint place after completing like the third Squid Game, and there would I'm still think my personal impression that exactly like the childhood Squid Game of like which like the Sang-yeon, Sang-woo, as well as the side 1-1-1 Squid Game candidate might have played during like the childhood. Since like halfway in that childhood Squid Game, there was like that important position and point in the Squid Game, halfway point in like Squid Game, and like the power of like the Inspector Royal. I'm considering in a similar manner, like I'm considering there would definitely, I'm sitting to my considering impression that there will be something along the line equivalent to like that Inspector Royal kind of like an important thing present in this like very good game, dangerous good game as well in like the present as well, stepping to my consideration. So like I'm considering since like if one can CGA candidate might have never been able to like in his childhood might have never been able to like achieve that Inspector Royal position power. I'm going to predict precisely because of that. Like this time, it will be extremely that much more important and crucial for him that basically to ensure that he gets like that ultimate power and that feeling of like as if like he has gotten like the power of Inspector Royal at least this time like for him to like succeed in that would be like the present intent for right now him like basically taken the studio candidate with like the one being taken to a different locations like pre-emergent. So like it would be considering it him to like basically set up like the third Squid Game in such a manner that basically the third Squid Game would be like the third Squid Game among like the six Squid Game that would be considering would be like the most would be like the third Squid Game in which like the Squid Game candidate with like the 111 number would be like the most confident about of him like being able to like win that game like the fastest is definitely my personal ambition. For like that for him to like pick that exact Squid Game for like the third Squid Game would be like, the reason for like him really heading away in like a different direction. But then like the Squid Game building is definitely my personal ambition. So like I'm considering that still I'm considering like him like I'm considering like the studio candidate with like the 111 number like him, but he will be like about to approach like eventually approach like the third studio. I'm considering him once again being like feeling like extremely or confident thinking that he's definitely going to achieve his goal and win this exact third studio and get that Inspector Royal equivalent position. But like I'm considering the scenario to be like once again like it's free to repeat itself and like the plans of like the 1-1 candidate totally backfiring on himself and just like I'm considering definitely once again his career repeating itself with like I'm considering no matter how extremely difficult the third Squid Game would be for like Sangiona or the other remaining Squid Game candidates. Still I'm considering like Sangion's totally struggling his way into like eventually definitely being like the first to complete like the third Squid Game would definitely be Sangion's definitely my preference. And that way Sangion like totally breaking all expectations of like the 1-1-1 Squid Game candidate as well as the entirety of like the workers of like the Squid Game who would be only working just for like this 1-1-1 Squid Game candidate. It's definitely my best friend. But even the front man would be working for this exact 1-1-1 Squid Game candidate who would be like a billionaire running like the Squid Game. It's definitely my best friend. Yet all of their expectations like totally backfiring with like Sangyeon precisely being ending up being like the first winner, first person to complete like the third Squid Game and get that Inspector Royal equivalent sufficient with like the mental scenario that I'm personally only parting and my personal impression. Okay, so like definitely when the Bria position right now with like as like Sandion is like cutting out this like umbrella shape like with like the sweat drop like falling closer and closer to the umbrella. Right now my Bria impression are like one of like Sandion sweat drops definitely falling into like the side umbrella is like the scenario, a bit of like that a single sweat drop of the Sangion actually falling onto like the umbrella. That Sangion will be really trying to like cut out the definitely where was and that sweat drop I'm considering kind of like changing like the color of like the umbrella and changing like the top portion of like the shape of like the umbrella to certain extent. That's also like a possible scenario that I'm about to bring. Yet like I'm about to bring as to like how Sangion would be like pulling that out would be precisely through after like Sanjon would be like totally like extremely panicking at that point. Get like I'm considering like the luckily for Sanjon like maybe like the either the Squid Game workers not seeing that for definitely I'm considering like definitely the Squid Game workers behind like the CCTV would be definitely witnessing most likely even seeing that because all of this is like precisely monitored to that extent and of the brain. At least like the studio workers in like the CCTV might be actually seeing that. Yet like I'm considering the I'm considering maybe like the studio workers within like the Squid Game, second Squid Game room might alone might not be saying that. Yet like I'm considering how as like how it's like this Sangyeon would be pulling out his like victory would be I'm considering like certainly Sangyeon like panicking yet like Sangyeon like basically being able to like cut out like the umbrella precisely just in the nick of time and yeah I'm considering at that point Sanjon like precisely holding his finger precisely in such a manner, holding his finger on the umbrella precisely in such a manner as to like precisely cover like using his thumb like Sanjon precisely holding the umbrella while covering like the precise spot in like the umbrella where Sanjon's like single sweat drop might have fallen and affected like the umbrella. So basically at that point like Sanjon holding the umbrella and covering that precise spots with his like thumb and like showing the umbrella to like the Squid Game guard. And basically that way like Sanjon like maybe tricking like the Squid Game guards alone and basically passing that second Squid Game. It's like given the scenario that I'm preparing right now. So it's like the Squid Game of the right now. That's for like the paid Squid Game candidate right now taking like the Squid Game worker with like the square mark, like the hostage. Like right now, the scenario that I'm preparing right now, definitely for like the remaining Squid Game workers in that room. With like the triangle mark right now I'm considering would be straight away take the life of both like the studium worker with like the square mark along with like the same studium candidate together straight away taking their life as like the scenario that I'm considering and right that was like the reason would be precisely because of like the none of them all being like the most likely would be like given the order by like the person who is like running like the studium might have straight away initially might have given the order like exactly like how all these each of these Indian workers in their room have these like three sets of rules as to like then not even being able to like interact forbidden from even being able to like interact with each other unless given permission from higher up like especially because of there being such extreme strict rules and I think they are not even allowed to like leave their rooms without permission as well. So like especially because like even like the studio workers are given such extreme strict rules and those differing like the identity like none of like the studio workers wearing like the red uniform and like their mask would be like none of them would be knowing like the identity of each of the other. It's definitely my difference. Absolutely like it's like all this great number of studio workers in like the red uniform present within like this entire studio building up the strength among them, like none of them would be knowing like the identity of each other. It's definitely my opinion. Right? So like my personal impression is definitely that like that when like the Squid Game even writers like the Squid Game was like building up and like Squid Game workers were like getting recruited into like the Squid Game like at that point itself like I was like this like extremely role might have been enforced onto each and every single one of them that basically if like anyone among them like even accidentally takes out their mask and reveals their identity, gets their identity revealed in front of like the other Squid Game workers, then their lives would be like instantly taken. It's definitely my personal impression. And so like basically like even accidentally or like consciously like taking off their mask and revealing their identity to any other studio worker would be like punishable with that will be like that strict rule that might definitely be present within like the studio building areas. Definitely my preference. And this week also like the reason for like I think like one among like the three rooms present within like the rooms of like the studio workers even being like they are allowed to they're only allowed to take off their mask while within their studio rooms. While like they are within like the rooms of like their while the studio workers are within their individual rooms. It's definitely my very emerging zone. Especially because of this reason, like I'm delivering right now for like the remaining studio workers right now, with like having this precise studio worker with like the square mark being like getting ending up being like a hostage of like that fake studio candidate, like they won't be able to like afford like the possibility of like possibility of like his identity, that's to game workers like identity being revealed. So like especially to prevent that embassy like them to most likely not take any chances straight away without any delay or like take the life of like that first Squid worker with like the square mark along with like that first failed Squid Game candidate as well. Who's like taking that Squid worker as a hostage as well. Them both dying right now is like the scenario that I'm considering and my consideration. So like my question right now as for like precisely the moment like the good game worker was like the square mask was taken from stage by like the failed good game candidate. At that very moment itself, like basically the fact that like the remaining Squid Game workers was like the half of like I think like half of the remaining Squid Game workers like their actors like straight away taking the life of all the remaining failed Squid Game candidates within that uh Squid Game room at that very instant itself, precisely because of these precise Squid Game workers in like a red uniform totally fearing, seriously fearing like the possibility of like the Squid Game candidates like teaming up and ganging up against them, especially because of like most of the time since like whenever there's like since like in like the red light, green light Squid Game as well as like I think in like the current Squid Game as well, second Squid Game as well. Like since like when like the total numbers of like since like I think like the total number of Squid Game candidates outnumber like the total number of like Squid Game workers like in radio present in that precise Squid Game room, and those are like they would like totally fearing like they would definitely have that deep down would be like the Squid Game feature. Squid Game workers, each of them deep down would be totally be having that tiny bit of a fear of like the possibility of like all these when pushed to like such extreme situations, like the possibility of like all these Squid Game candidates, like great number of Squid Game candidates that are even more than their number, like the number of like Squid Game workers, like all of them, like all of these Squid Game candidates, like teaming up and ganging up against them, like that would be a fear that might always lie within each of the Squid Game workers. It's definitely my opinion. So like this fear might have been what caused like the Squid Game workers to like straight away, even while the situation is like the situation of like a hostage of like one of like their Squid Game worker with the spermas, like them straight away like taking the attention from that and basically straight away taking the life of all the remaining phase Squid Game candidates at that very moment will be precisely because of them fearing this possibility of like all of them ganging up against them at that moment. It's definitely my suggestion to prevent such a scenario during like those Squid Game work, half of those Squid Game workers might have straight away taken the life of all the remaining phase Squid Game candidates at that very instant. It's definitely my impression. Also, definitely my possible impression right now as for like the precise Squid Game worker with like the sperma right now being revealed to be like extremely to be like an extremely young person. Like I'm preferring definitely my possible impression right now is that basically that precise Squid Game candidate with like the 111 number, like he would be like the precise still I'm still thinking about the impression that he would be like the precise billionaire that we are running this and that's Squid Game and to whom this like island where like the Squid Game is even taking place belongs to. And he would be like the billionaire who might have even built like the Squid Game and set up like the Squid Game and all that. It's definitely my personal image. But like I'm preferring also for like this Squid Game worker being like extremely young. I'm considering it might have to possibly do with like that Squid Game worker possibly being the son of that precise Squid Game candidate, like that precise billionaire with like the 111 number. It's definitely my preference. So like I'm preferring like that billionaire Squid Game worker like in his childhood while possibly like playing like such a childhood Squid Game with like Sangwoo and Sangyeon and always losing to like Sangwoo and Sangyeon might have totally affected him so much um, that basically even as they grew up, like he never grew out of it, and like even after growing up, he might have exactly like right now how the exact way in which like he's like right now cheating and rigging like the game into like basically like even right now winning like the being able to like win like the second Squid Game through cheating like even in like real life as well he might have only as he grew up with like the intent to like get revenge on Sangwoo and Sangwoo and defeat them and take their life in like an actual dangerous game. Like at that point, I was trying to achieve that goal. Like he might have felt that he will like need a lot of money, and in order to make a whole lot of money just for this, like I was trying, he might have exactly like him cheating in like this game, like in real life as well. He might have done all sorts of like cheating, betrayal, and trickery and everything, and like maybe it will be through such a manner that he might have made like a lot of money, and basically with all that money, he might have became like a billionaire, and he might have bought this island and made Squid Game building and the Squid Game and everything. And of bring he might have even foreseen like the situation which like in order for him to like basically run the Squid Game, he would need a lot of workers. And for I'm considering like he might have also thought along the line that basically getting people to like basically do the job of being like a Squid Game worker not being possible. It's also like a possibility that I'm considering maybe he might have thought for like I'm considering maybe like each and every single Squid Game worker I'm considering maybe will be his uh, son and daughters of definitely I'm considering each of like the Squid Game worker in like a red workers in like a red uniform possibly being like his offspring is definitely my personal theory and prediction right now. And maybe that might be the reason for like the Squid Game worker with like the triangle, with like the square mask, like his identity being revealed to be like an extremely young person, precisely because him possibly being like the son of like that precise game candidate, like the billionaire, who would be like the precise game candidate, like the 111 number, definitely remember the name. And so would be like the same situation as like every other studio are being like the offspring of him and I'm considering so all the each and every single one of like the studio workers would be like brought up in such a manner to be like to basically act cold and basically to basically take life of like and that would be the reason for like each of the civilian worker being like acting so heartless and basically in an extremely cold and heartless and villainous manner. Like the fact that they are taking the life of like the failed candidates would be all due to like the upbringing that might have been given to them by that side villainous billionaires that might have that may be precisely the candidate, studio candidate with like the 111 number who might be like the first person running like this entire game is definitely my personal invention. So like I'm preferring the front man I'm preferring right now might be like his oldest son. It's definitely my personal impression. Uh, and so like definitely my personal impression that like it would just be like the studio worker with like the square mask alone that would be extremely young, but like all of like the studio workers in like the red uniform and like the front man himself as well would be like the offspring of like the precise billionaire Indian candidate with like the 111 number is definitely my primary and this might be the precise reason for like that precise Squid Game workup with like the square mask even while being held hostage by like failed Squid Game candidate and threatened with like the possibility of death like the fact that like extremely young Squid Game worker like basically even after taking off his mask like basically him the fact that him not even flinching while at like the face of death like would be precisely because of like the way in which like all these like offsprings of like the process billionaire studio candidate with like the 111 number like how he might have brought them up. It's definitely my personal impression. He might have brought them up with all of his like thoughts teaching in a way as if like that he might have not like brainwashed all of his offsprings and might have taught them life as like life being like a Squid Game and basically it's all about like winning equals like survival and living and like failure means elimination and that it would be in such a manner like they might have all brought up. So like I'm considering it might be all due to like all that brainwashing that might have been done while bringing them up by this type villain of like civilian candidate with like the 111 number might be like for this reason for like the Squilliam that precise Squilliam candidate as well as like the remaining Squilliam reason for that precise Squilliam worker being fearless and not even flinching while even while in like, the face of death and even for like the remaining Squilliam workers as well acting in like an extremely heartless and cold manner would be exactly so this is definitely my reaction. So definitely my impression right now is that like even though like the paid Squid candidate right now has taken its life and hence like the Squid candidate with like the Scrubman has like basically freed from like the hostage like state still emphasized solely due to like that Squid candidate with like the Scrubman having removed his mask and that way having revealed his like face and identity and those different things definitely right now, like the remains Squid Game workers with like the triangle mask will be right now taking the life of that Squid Game candidate with like the square Squid Game worker with like the square mask right now. That's the scenario that I'm looking right now and that's very okay, so like looking at the very impression right now as for like the front man on top of taking the life of like the Squid Game worker with like the square mask after Peter of like the square mask and on top of like the front man even saying the dialogue that they really when they find out who you are, you die. Like I'm considering that would be precisely that absolute role that would be but that would be told to like each of like the game workers who would be like the offspring of like the Squid Game candidate with like the 111 number, like he would be like the billionaire that's like running the game and he would have made this like even from like the inception of the game, like he might have made this like role into like the most important role that they've been even if like one like even if eventually like any even a single student candidate like finds out about your identity, even sees your face, then your life will be taken. Would be that most important role that he might have totally sold to each of like the civilian candidates would be just like civilian worker would be like offerings, and it would be precisely made that role would be precisely made by him, that billionaire, in such a manner so as to like precisely cover up his tracks. It's definitely my vulnerable, so that like him so selfishly would be always be able to like remain safe, especially because of like him fearing like the possibility that definitely before like the very first Squid Game began, and even after like the very first Squid Game and before like the second Squid Game began, like during that whole time period when like the initial Squid Game candidates had returned back after like the very first Squid Game, like through the majority vote, like all that time, like during all that time period, I'm considering definitely like the entirety of like the Squid Game workers, as well as like as well as the frontman, as well as like the Squid Game candidate with like the 111 number, like I'm considering them all might be living amongst like the public in like the specific of like they were like Sangyun and Sangwoo would be definitely my the impression. So the and I'm considering that while it's like a studian, while the person who's running like the studian, like the studian candidate is like 111 number would be like a billionaire. Still like the fact that he's like a billionaire would be hidden from like the public is definitely my the impression. Also like he might have managed to not only hide that information, but he might have also managed to hide the information about like all these like about like him having so many offspring as well. It's definitely my the impression. Like definitely like considering like the entire people game workers will be his offspring. Definitely my perspective. And that would be like him having so many offspring as well would be like a detail that would be like totally hidden from the public as well. Definitely my perspective. So like the worry for like that billionaire that's running like the Squid Game would be that like even if like a single Squid Game candidate even sees like any of like the Squid Game workers like face like at that point like if if that and if such a scenario happens like basically, and if that candidates manage to like escape like the Squid Game island and makes it back to like the mainland, then mainland city, then at that point like that Squid Game candidate, the possibility of like that Squid Game candidate reporting about that, him seeing that face and basically to like the police, and basically that way like a cat gets possibly being thrown off that side Squid Game worker his face like the civilian candidate. So and that way, like basically since my government represents that like each of the civilian workers would be like the offering of like the billionaire civilian candidate who's like running like the civilian. So that like I'm just going through the sketch, like especially since I'm the bring like before like the game began, and after like the very first game was over, and like before like the second game even started, like all that time like definitely like the billionaire person who's like running the food game, as well as the entire food game workers would be like living among the public and under the disguise of like normal people, like preferring like precisely because of the reason like I'm preferring if like even a single face of like a cat sketch of like any of like the Squid Game watchers would be able to be drawn by like the police through any of like the Squid Game candidate that events, like seeing like the face of any of like the Squid Game workers, then like that Squid Game worker eventually gets caught by like the police, then that Squid Game worker would be like on interrogation would be like to like that Squid Game worker, like eventually the police would be like able to get towards like the precise billionaire that's like the father of like all William Worker who would be like running like billionaire that's like basically running like the William. So like that way like to for him alone to like selfishly cover up his tracks, he would have set up this like ultimate role, this role as the ultimate role as to like basically to punish any William worker to get their identity revealed to any of like the William candidates, to punish them with like the punishment of death would be precisely selfishly just like a whole villainous kind of a role set by the precise Stygian candidate 111 number, like who's running like the Stygian, who solely and selfishly prioritize his safety. It's definitely, and for him to like precisely consistently evade like the police and captivity and getting arrested would be the precise reason for like him setting up such a role as definitely my position.